Episode 11, Clip 2, the latest on Iran and South Africa.
But I think after the previous election, when he realized that he was the only president that didn't start new wars and he actually acted to end them and he signed the Abraham Accords, he realized that he can be this almost messianic figure of pacifism and ending all the wars. And that's the promise he made to the American people during this run for presidency, was that he's going to end all these wars. So it seems to him that's the primary solution. But again, it really just depends on these societies and understanding their cultures and what influences them, because it's not always possible unless people change or education changes. That's the only solution. So let's take
this clip now.
The exiled crown prince of Iran, His Royal Highness Reza Pahlavi is here in studio. Your Royal Highness, great to have you.
Maria, thank you for having me again.
Thank you so much for being here. Give us your take on that, what you just heard, that the fighting with the Houthis is over. Should we believe that? And what about a potential deal with this current regime in Iran?
The past 40 years has demonstrated to everyone that has followed Iran that the demeanor and the pattern of behavior of this regime has remained consistent only in one way, and that is to continue fomenting regional instability and conflict as a means of its own survival by financing its proxies and utilizing them as an instrument of pressure or intimidation across the world. The Houthis are just one example of that. The majority of the funding came from Iran, the training, the weapons. It's not that they say we're going to quit the fight. Who is to say they're not going to start it again once Iran will start funding them again? Because this is what the regime is most likely to do. Khamenei said that this is a temporary setback, and he was forced into accepting the climate of indirect talks only to buy some time to the regime. They have done that before. So nothing leads us to believe that this time they have a complete change of behavior.
I think that's what we've seen in the past is during all of the previous deals, they always stall and then they always buy for time. And then basically time is their ultimate kind of game. It's important to understand that I think in Iran specifically, but in other Islamic cultures as well, but specifically in Shia Islam, there's this concept of basically we will win things to time. We will outlive everyone else. So it's even if we have setbacks, okay, it'll set us back for 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years. It doesn't matter. Even if it's 100 years, even if it's 1,000 years, our great-great-grandchildren will continue to believe and will continue to strive for the same objective. So we basically have to take steps on that path, and then it doesn't matter. As successful as Allah lets us be, that's as successful as we'll be. And then if there are setbacks. But again, what we really want for Iran is him to come back to power. He doesn't want to come back to power. He said multiple times that even though many of the Persians all around the world and in Iran really want him to come back to power as their heir to the throne of the Shah, he said that he wants to just be in charge of a transitional government, to have free elections in Iran, and really to turn it into a real Western democracy. So that's the real hope, is to have somebody like him who can at least transitionally turn Iran from this theocracy into a modern, beautiful, vibrant democracy. It wasn't exactly a vibrant democracy before, but it was a very vibrant country, and it was extremely liberal and open-minded and developed, etc. So the hope is to return Iran back to the amazing country that it was before the Islamic Revolution. Yeah, those are my hopes. What are yours?
Yeah, and that's the thing for the people obviously living there, and for the region, of course. The energy that they're spending, a massive amount of money that they spend to stir the pot with Israel through proxies and to stabilize the region, could be spent on other things that would benefit them. And bottom line is, you have to try, and if there's even a glimmer of opportunity, I think we should try to take it. And even if it's not forever, and who knows, ultimately the bottom line is whatever we need to do to stop the craziness now. But unfortunately, I think we had some reporting that there was a finding in Iran that the main thing is that every country, and certainly the United States, has basically said the one thing Iran can't have is nuclear weapons. And what did they find?
Yeah, apparently a new secret nuclear facility. So let's take a quick look at that.
Maybe it's not, oh no, it's not so secret anymore. Oh no. Let's take a look at this reporting.
Exclusive satellite images revealing the location of a previously unknown Iranian nuclear site. Now, the facility spans nearly 2,500 acres And this is a big discovery. Jillian Turner has more from the State Department. Good morning, Jillian.
Pretty explosive, Dana. These satellite images that we have obtained exclusively show the alleged site location and even the layout of these secret, previously unknown nuclear weapons facilities inside Iran. This, of course, raises fresh concerns about the regime's role in these ongoing nuclear talks with the Trump administration.
I don't think her choice of words saying against it's very explosive finding. I know she wasn't trying to be funny or punny, but that is stark, right? And that speaks to the point that the exiled crown prince basically is saying you can't trust him. But that is, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. We've always felt, even in the past with the prior agreement, and there was always this concern that there were things being done that weren't being observed and found. And so I think at least it's good that this is being found now in the context of the negotiations that are going on, because they can say, look there, what are those 2,500 acres doing over there? And what exactly are you doing there? Where else is there?
Yeah, I think it was like 2015 or 17 or something like that. The Mossad, during the last nuclear agreement, the Iranians kind of had to shelve everything and hide it for a while. And they said that they got rid of everything and all the knowledge and all the information, but the Mossad tracked it. And what they figured is, in order to secure something, you have two options. Either you put it in like a bunker on top of a military base inside of a warship, patrolled by 100 fighter jets, just extremely bombastic and over the edge, but as secure as possible. Or you could just put it somewhere just unassuming, hide it under a stone and hope he finds it, right? So those are the kind of the two ideas that you can take. So Iran took that second method. So they hid the archive of all of the scientific research they did into nuclear bombs, specifically the bomb program, the weapons program, and they hid it in these, just basically a regular storage unit somewhere in rural Tehran. And the Mossad were able to figure out where this was, even though two people in all of Iran knew. And they were able to steal all of these discs, documents, and everything, and Israel presented it to the world. And it showed that kind of along all the negotiations, every single time, they always continued the program, the research to the bomb, even though Iran claims that religiously they're not allowed to have a nuclear bomb because Islam doesn't allow it, and because Khamenei has a fatwa, which is like a religious decree that makes it banned and illegal. So if Iran religiously can have it, then how can you say that Iran is even developing the nuclear program? What is wrong with you? How can you even make such a claim? But obviously, what this verified is they were working on basically the explosive aspects of this, like you said, for a very long time, behind everybody's back, behind all the international agencies that are there to monitor it, etc. They were always continuing on their path to a bomb. Because Shia Islam is a minority and they were tormented for 1,000 years by the majority Sunni Islam, basically Iran feels as the leader of the Shia world that if they're able to have a nuclear bomb, it can make them safe from annihilation any time in the future.
It'll be interesting next few months as negotiations proceed, see what comes of it. We'll see what our satellites can find as well, and we can remain hopeful. Meanwhile, there's always something going on in the world. Ultimately, look what's happening in South Africa right now.
Yeah, kill the Boer became a very common political chant. And Boer, for anybody unfamiliar, is a nickname in South Africa to the white farmers. So for a bunch of years now, it's been extremely common where white farmers are basically lynched in the most brutal and vile ways possible, imaginable, including all the heinous crimes we won't mention here. But it's just been horrifically horrible. Anybody who's been keeping track of what's been going on there, although it has been hard because the media does not want to report on it, because they like crimes that are the exact opposite of South Africans attacking white South Africans. And that is something that didn't get any attention, but there are literally thousands or possibly tens of thousands of just innocent men, women, children, grandparents in their home, babies, just massacred. It's really been horrific, and nobody really gave a crap or cared. And it does seem that under this administration that it has been changing. Again, like we mentioned in the past, Elon Musk is a former South African, and David Sachs is, and many other people in that administration, and many of them have family there, and just to live safely. Even 10, 15 years ago, you had to live in a community with security guards on a regular basis. And even then, the security guards can turn their back and try and rob you themselves, and kidnappings. Just the situation there has been deteriorating nonstop for a while. So it's just very sad to see, but it is good to see that some people are having a bright future. And these really are the type of refugees and immigrants the United States needs. People that want to contribute, that love the country, that are passionate, that are patriotic, that really want to build and to improve and to live a peaceful life with their families. These are the people we want to as refugees in our country, not a society that wants to invade and replace us. I think it's just beautiful, just watching the American flags and the excitement of the people coming to the promised land. And the United States is the promised land for so many people around the world.
It was 59 refugees, mostly families that were farmers. The concern, I think, is that they were saying there's other refugees elsewhere that have been waiting camps or what have you to come, and they're questioning why these were able to make it in. And as you pointed out, one of the distinctions is they had been vetted. These were people that were contributing members of the workforce, were going to come here and contribute as well. And optics aside, people want to criticize it, but there are parts of the media, the legacy media, that are not all too happy that the United States accepted these individuals in. We do have a clip that kind of lets us maybe take a look at that side of the viewpoint and put that up.
Well, the Trump administration has made it virtually impossible for many refugees to come to the United States, but the president is making a special exception for a group of 59 white South Africans who have now been granted refugee status. They arrived at Dulles Airport just outside of Washington, D.C. on a charter flight that was paid for by the U.S. government. The Trump administration approved their applications in just under 3 months. That is much faster than the normal process, which can take years. The president and his top advisor, Elon Musk, who is South African, have made allegations that white farmers in the country are being discriminated against under land reform policies. Now, South Africa's government says those policies are necessary to remedy the legacy of apartheid and calls the allegations of discrimination unfounded and completely false. The Episcopal Church, which has worked for decades to resettle refugees, says they will not be helping this time around, calling it painful to watch one group of refugees receive preferential treatment over many others who have been waiting in refugee camps or in dangerous conditions for years. But the White House says this is the beginning of a much larger relocation effort, guys.
Yeah. Will it be just from South Africa, or will it be other countries where you have other minorities?
And that's the point that many Democrats are making, that there are a lot of refugees who have been waiting in camps in conflict areas as well in Africa. But right now, the Trump administration particularly focused on this group of South Africans.
So the concern specifically is that, if you know the history of South Africa, I have a cousin who's a paleontologist, he's a professor, and paleontologist to dinosaur bone research and so forth. And he went to visit South Africa many years ago, and he came back with some very fascinating stories. The country had a minority white population that was ruling the country of non-white, mostly black, and eventually that overturned. And the concern now is that the white minority is literally having their land removed from them, multi-generational lands that were there, and that there's allegations that some are being injured or even murdered. So listen, I don't have all the details. Bottom line is I did hear some stories. I used to work for and with a white South African cardiothoracic surgeon for a period of time. And ultimately, I think it's always important to try to give everyone an opportunity to come to the United States. But there's always a chance to say, why are they here and why are they not here? And there obviously seem to be hinting at perhaps that the color of the skin of these individuals is maybe a factor, but I think it's more the predicament that they were in.
The predicament that they're in is because the color of their skin. That's the important thing to note here, right? So first of all, the term refugee has been so overused and abused, like we've discussed in the past, right? In general, but specifically in the Middle East, but not just there. Like we've seen, anybody who shows up in the United States at the border basically says, hey, I'm a refugee, therefore let me in. And at least under the Biden administration, they were being let in, right? The problem is that, like, real refugees are rare. it should be people who are really being targeted and prosecuted. It should be something extremely rare. In every country, the 1 in a million that's really being chased down by the government for no real crimes of their own, but just because of something else, right? They're an innate characteristic they can't control, right? Those are the real refugees we should be helping. And the vast majority of these refugees that organization Episcopalian, they claim that they don't want to help these people, right? The vast majority of people they are quote unquote helping probably are not real refugees coming. Maybe they come from a country that has a war in it, but they're probably not being targeted and harassed. Whereas what's been going on in South Africa is these people have been hunted. And this has been happening for at least a dozen or more years. It's not allegations. Like, this has been happening for a very long time, and they're being targeted because of the color of their skin. The government in South Africa recently passed a law that allows them to take the land of any white farmers. Just take it. There's no due process, no anything, even though these people's families have been there for 500 years working the ground, right? So maybe there were crimes 500 years ago. I wouldn't argue or deny that, but to say that therefore these people deserve their land to be confiscated and them to be tortured and their murderers and the rapists not to be prosecuted, that's just not right. But that's what's been going on in South Africa for a very long time, and it's very sad. So again, you can't say it's not because of the color of their skin, because the entire purpose they're being targeted is because of the color of their skin. I wouldn't say necessarily that the reason why Trump is saving them is because of the color of the skin, even though it does make a good photo op to make that claim. I think in reality, these are real refugees really being tortured, and they are of similarly minded kind of cultures and ways of thinking. Basically, most of these are very hardworking farmers that just want a good life and want to be prosperous and grow as much crop as they can to feed as many people and just make the world a better place in their own way. Unlike many of the other quote unquote refugees that have been brought in or have been coming that really just want to invade. Like, these are people who are deserving, in my opinion.
Well, no good deed goes unpunished, especially not in the media. But CNN did have something to say about it. We can put that clip up. Of course, this one happens of Scott Jennings doing essentially what he does, which is give his point of view.
I do think it's not alleged discrimination that these people are facing in South Africa. The law there absolutely allows their property to be confiscated. They are subject to racial discrimination. Some have been subject to violence from some reports that I have read. We're talking about 50-something people, and the people who seem to be angriest about this today had no problem with 20 million coming here, some of the worst people in the world coming here, including gang members and so on and so forth. I don't have a lot of sympathy for the folks who are outraged today after what happened to this country over the last several years, over 50-something people who are clearly being discriminated against in South Africa. The previous administration had priorities about who to let in, including all kinds of folks who I would argue shouldn't be here. This administration is going to set priorities about who not to let in.
But let's just be honest about what those priorities are, right? And by the way, I'm a Democrat here. I did not defend the Biden administration on immigration.
But you voted for him.
So that doesn't mean that I defended him on immigration.
Continuation of it in 2024, did you not?
I did not vote for his policies on immigration.
But you voted.
Did you vote?
You voted to extend the immigration policies of the last administration.
I did not vote for that.
The point, you're in a party that opened the borders, and I'm in a party that closed the borders, and I think the American people prefer it our way.
I think Scott Jennings is just awesome. Yeah, he summarizes it very poignantly in the way he puts it right back at this person in his face, saying, you did vote for a continuation of that, didn't you? And yeah, I think he makes the point.
Be sure to watch our other clips and shorts and the entire episode 11 of The YoJoe Show.